Welcome to the Business Chop, where challenges, success, rewards, and solutions to entrepreneurship collide. Let's chop it up.
Hello, Chop Squad. Audrey Wiggins here, your host, and I'm excited as usual to be with you this week. And I'm even more excited for our guest, Scott Morris. And Scott is the founder and CEO of Propulsion.AI. So you know what this show is going to be about already, right? Scott has been a highly successful people operations executive for nearly 20 years. He's now traded the cushy corporate gig for a tech bro vest. I love it. And the challenges of being an entrepreneur. His track record spans 5 industries across North and Central America, where he's consistently delivered bottom line results through people-focused initiatives. His latest venture, Propulsion.AI. Intelligent job descriptions written by AI and you. So we're going to meet Scott and learn more about him on the other side of this message.
Knock out your competition with Altogether Marketing. We elevate your brand. Take a stance with your business name, logo, the tagline, your colors, even the fonts for your business. And then jab left with your website, jab right with core values. Back up with product experience and bring it on with you. Visit altogether.biz and let us help you create a knockout brand.
Scott, welcome to the Business Chop.
Audrey, I'm so happy to be here. I've looked forward to it, and I'm thankful for the invite.
So before we get all serious and stuff, what are a couple of fun facts about Scott Morris that you can share with the Chop Squad?
Well, here's what you can't read on my LinkedIn profile. I actually started my career. I grew up in Los Angeles, and I started my career as a police officer for the city of Los Angeles.
Wow.
And, it seems like a career in the police department and a career in people ops in HR don't have much to do with one another. But you know what I've learned? 4 people could stand on 4 different corners of the exact same intersection, watch the same accident, and have 4 very different perspectives about what they saw. And in a weird way, that's exactly how organizations work. Perception drives a lot, and people's perception colors a lot of how they see the organization and how they react to things. So it was an important lesson coming in from my early career that I've kept, kind of throughout.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good analogy. We'll see where that goes. So you turned in your badge and your sidearm for a support.
had to do something entrepreneurial. It's a great career. It was a great part of my career, but I knew entrepreneurism was something that was important to me.
Yeah, but I'm sure folks appreciated when you were out there, doing your police work. So appreciate that. So, continuing with your bio a little bit, then you want to give us a little more background on you aside from your fun cop job.
Well, so you mentioned it in your intro, Audrey. I have 25 years in the profession of HR, about 20 of those in a C-level role. And I've worked in organizations as large as 15,000 down to 250. I'm thankful for that breadth and that span, because in a large organization, obviously you steer strategy and you learn to look a little bit farther down the road, and you have to navigate some of the politics. In a small organization, nobody cares what your title is. Everybody rolls up their sleeves and everybody has to be a frontline doer, even when you have more senior management positions. And I'm thankful for that, because it's kept me present to the real problems that HR and talent professionals have to solve on a regular basis, and that managers struggle with within their functions.
I want to ask you, is AI making human recruiters and HR professionals obsolete?
That's a great question. And Audrey, it's one that a lot of people are asking. I'll give you my short answer, and then I'm going to give you a longer explanation. No, it is not. In fact, I think it makes human recruiters, human HR professionals, even more important than they have been. Go back to 1967. There was a huge tech release in 1967 by the Texas Instruments Company. You know what it was?
The calculator.
Yes, ma'am. 100%. 100%. And at that time, The buzz was that the calculator was going to do two things. It was going to put bookkeepers out of business, and it was going to make us all so dumb that we couldn't do math anymore. And neither of those were true. Now, advance to 1983, Lotus puts out 123, the earliest version of a spreadsheet product like Microsoft Excel. And you know what the buzz at that time was? All of the financial pros were going to be out of business. And it didn't happen. In fact, what did happen is they became more valuable, but they had to make a shift. The shift was away from delivering value as through calculations and toward delivering value through analysis and strategy. And I think we're seeing the exact same thing today play out that was present in those two. Artificial intelligence is going to enable bandwidth for recruiters and for HR professionals, bandwidth that they can provide more consultative and strategic services, that they can think more deeply about workforce enablement, that they can think about employee engagement because they're going to have the time to do it. But there's a mental shift that has to happen, and that is releasing the old way of delivering value and embracing the new way of delivering value. And I know you're an early adopter, so you get this, but it's a hard switch for a lot of people to make. AI is not going to take a job, but there is going to be a transition, and people who embrace AI are likely going to outpace those who don't.
Twisting up just a little bit. So if the AI is helping our productivity, what is killing employee productivity?
That's a really good question too. And I think it all comes back to role design. My company, Propulsion.AI, that is our main focus. It's the way that we deliver the most value. Here's the fact as I see it. Managers who have truly thought through how a role fits strategy, what kind of outcomes they want to expect from a person in that role, outcomes, not tasks, the ways that they're going to measure success, the competencies and skills that are going to be required for someone and those that you want to develop. A manager who's thought through those things becomes a talent magnet. And it doesn't matter whether you're hiring somebody inside or from the outside of the company, whether you're pivoting a role. Managers who have done that hard thinking work, they become the kind of managers that employees want to work for.
Now we're going to pivot just a little bit and over into the entrepreneur kind of like mindset. And one question we have is, why would anyone in their right mind go from getting paid for 40 hours per week to working 70 hours per week for free?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'll tell you, I'm sure everybody has different motivations, but my own were really based on two factors. One is for 20 years, I've been buying HR tech, and I always felt like, it never addressed the root cause problems. And I'll give you an example, and it's bad to call people out, but Workday sells so much business in a year, but I'm hard pressed to find anybody I've ever talked to that actually likes Workday. And in part, it's because they're doing a really good job of enabling workflow, but they're not really solving the root cause problems that live within performance management, within recruiting and talent attraction and acquisition, within talent management, right? And those are important problems. And I really thought I could do a better job of solving those because I've walked in those shoes. I've solved the problems by hand. So I got possessed of this idea that I could just build better software. And we'll see if that's true. I think we've done a remarkable job, but we started with who are the people that know the problems, and we got smart software developers to help us. The second force, on me at least, was that, after 25 years of dispensing advice to people about fit and the importance of fit, I found myself inside of a company where I just didn't fit. And I mean, nothing was right. The way I communicated was not the right for that organization. My, tolerance for and lack of tolerance for mediocrity and excellence, and the places where I was more bendable and places where I was not, was totally off for that organization. The priorities that I had and the priorities that some of the other leaders had were just off. And so I exited that organization really quickly. And not surprisingly, Forbes did a study. They followed 20,000 new hires. 46% of them failed in the first 18 months. Same kind of experience that I had. There's a financial toll. In fact, it's estimated to be about $1.1 trillion globally for that lack of fit. But there's a personal toll too. And so this concept of helping people get into roles where they can thrive became really, really important to me. And that's why we focus on role design, because that is the doorway to everything else that leads to good employee fit, satisfaction, high productivity, and longevity. And that's what that's the focus that we have at Propulsion AI. And that's why we started with this piece, because the more thoughtful managers are about the role, the more they're able to get the right people into those roles that are actually going to fit. And that just starts a positive chain of events.
Wow. Okay. So what skills then from HR leadership actually matter in a startup? I'm assuming we're talking about entrepreneurs who have a great product idea, but don't really have HR or the people skills.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think just in terms of the profession, and I think I'd be hard pressed to speak for everybody that's in the profession, but in my own personal experience, the HR people have to wear a lot of hats and have to pivot very quickly. And that's, I think, the big thing that I found as a founder is, you don't get any luxuries, right? When I was working in a company, and I think this is pretty typical too, it was really easy to say, oh, our marketing team, they're not that good. But then you get out and you have to wear that hat and you're like, oh my gosh, marketing's hard. And I could say that about product or engineering or, any of the disciplines that you find within a company. So I think out of the profession of HR, just the ability to pivot, to think about the business, to have to really understand all aspects of it. I think I took that in. That's the major lesson that I took out of my previous career into my current.
So what is the real cost of a bad hire?
Well, let's look at the different types of costs. And you heard me a second ago when I said $1.1 trillion globally. There are a bunch of different estimates from that are based on salary, but I don't think they take into account all of the different costs. So you may, financially, you are likely going to pay 3x somebody's salary, 2 to 3x what their salary level is when you have that role turnover. But you think about it, there are impacts that are less financially measurable. What happens with the team? Because now they have to do double duty. What happens to the confidence in the organization when you have turnover go up? Exactly right. Right. And there are personal impacts as well. And I don't think there's a sufficient amount of attention that's paid to those personal impacts. There's the feeling that somehow you were a massive failure, when in reality, it could have been you just didn't fit in that organization. And by the way, I don't mean fit in. I've never meant fit in. I don't want people to have to fit in, but there are hallmarks of fitting. And when you don't, the impact of feeling like a failure is pretty big, and it's hard to financially measure, but it's personally impactful. There's especially in quick turnover, like if you join and then leave pretty quickly, there's always a little side eye that goes on with other folks, and that's a cost as well. So it's hard to, it's easy to sum up some of the financials around it and harder to really appreciate what all of the costs are. And that's why role design is so incredibly important, because you want people to be a participant in the selection process, not just candidates that work through your funnel. You want them on the same side of the table with you, looking at the problems, which is why it's so important that managers are able to articulate how a role fits strategy and what the outcomes are and how you're going to measure those outcomes. Because that gives that individual the ability to look at the role with you, not on the opposite side of the table, and say, am I right for this? And it takes both of you, the company and the employee or the candidate, really looking critically and investigating together to ensure that you have that fit from the very start.
Awesome. So on that same vein or the same line then, so how do you future-proof your people operations function then?
I think there's one thing that really is the foundation for everything else, and that's the mindset. Let me create an example. If I came to you and I said, Audrey, I want you to give me $100,000 to invest in my business right now, you would probably ask me some questions, and I've discovered themes in these questions. It's likely that your first question is probably going to be around value creation. Scott, how are you going to create value? If I give you $100,000, how are you going to create value with that money? The second question you might ask is, as an investor, what kind of return are you going to offer me on that $100,000 that I gave you? And the third question might be about time. right? Over what time period should I be expecting that return? And it's so interesting to me that those are thematic questions that when we're talking about money, most people go to those questions. But when we're talking about putting somebody into a role, that logic seems to dissipate and go away. And I wonder why. Salary is an investment. And as the investor, you have every right to expect a return. Yet we design roles and when we put things into a job description, we start very task oriented, not outcomes oriented. Outcomes that's an investor mindset. And I think we have to apply that same thing to hiring. This is how you future proof your workforce, because what you're going to say is like, look, I need you to produce this outcome. So if we were going to hire, let's say, an accountant, right? A sort of traditional thing that we might put into that job description is follow up on delinquent accounts. But you got to ask yourself why. What's important about that, right? Like, it obviously needs to get done, but why is that the focus? Do we just need to see people come in and sit at a desk and write emails to people that don't want to get them and take, make phone calls to people who don't want to receive them? Does that make us feel good? My answer is it's a means to an end. And that end is called days outstanding. It's a measure of accounting efficiency, and it relates to how quickly the organization can collect revenue that it's owed. But that has a direct implication for top line revenue and bottom line productivity. And so rather than saying your job is to follow up on delinquent accounts, why don't we say your job is to move days outstanding from X to Y? That kind of mental shift is how you future-proof your workforce. Daniel Pink wrote in his book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us, and I can see you've read it like I have, right? Mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Nobody is going to get excited about coming in and doing tasks. Everybody connects to the outcomes and why they're important to the business. And that mental shift is what we need to do. We actually built that into our product at Propulsion.AI. It's a product that helps. Our digital human, Athena, actually interviews you about the role with the goal to try and extract some of these insights about what's important in your business and then crafts the role around that.
That's powerful. Yeah, absolutely powerful. So we've got that part fixed. So how does Gen Z fit into this? How are they changing workplace expectations? We got AI, technology, and their their eyes are wide open on this stuff.
Mastery, autonomy, and purpose, they are demanding the opportunity to do that. I think more than any other generation, they want meaningful work. They want to be involved in things that matter. They want to understand and have transparency around how their performance is going to be measured. They don't want objective platitudes. They want, or subjective platitudes rather. They want objective measures. And that's why those success measures that we build into the role design are so critically important, because it lets you say, hey, look, here are the outcomes. These are really important to the business. This is how I'm going to measure your success. Get going and how can I help you? Right? That's what they want. And I love that force that's being exerted right now inside of organizations as a result of greater numbers of Gen Z sort of, going to work. Because I think that is, that impetus to change is going to have a truly good impact on the world.
So you're going to help make entrepreneurs smart hiring managers.
And they need to be. HR Executive Magazine just published an article, and in it, sort of the headline for the article is 93% of Americans, this article came out last month, 93% of Americans are actively looking for work. That's not unemployed people. That's employed people too.
Okay.
Actively looking.
Yes.
93%. You got it. The talent magnets are going to win, right? The managers who have this mindset, who see, the proposition of putting somebody in a role as an investment, who have taken the time to be thoughtful about the role design, who allow that role design to impact the way they manage talent and the way that they evaluate performance. Those are the managers and consequently the organizations that are going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't stand those evaluations and all this stuff. It's like, it's crazy. And, evaluate yourself and all this stuff. Yes, just get rid of that old way of doing things. Let's bring in Propulsion.AI and different other programs that help us move forward. So how can Propulsion.AI make us smart business people?
So let's start with the problem, right? Most of us as managers, we have a really hard time when we're going to put a role on our team, and whether that's hiring from the outside, pivoting a role inside, mergers, acquisitions, whatever. Most of us have a really hard time getting, what we want in that role out of our heads and into some useful form. And even those of us who can do that usually are really task focused, and that doesn't lead to great outcomes, doesn't lead to great productivity, doesn't lead to employee engagement, doesn't lead to longevity in the role. And so what Propulsion AI does, the principal value, we built a digital human. She is effectively like a senior HR business partner or a senior recruiter, the kind that is going to be a consultant to you, that it's going to help you get out your thoughts. And when you're going to put a role on your team, Athena, our digital human, is going to interview you about that role. She's going to ask questions. You're going to give answers. She's going to develop some hypotheses. She'll write some content, test it with you, take your feedback, rework it, and move on. And everything that she does is scaffolded. So pieces build upon pieces, build upon pieces. Now, the value of that is that she's going to help you unlock how that role fits into your strategy, the outcomes that you need. And based on those outcomes, she's going to help you identify the right key performance indicators. And based on those key performance indicators, she's going to then take those and turn them into key results, target results, measurable first year outcomes. Then she's going to look and say, okay, what's your ideal candidate? Based on those things, what's your ideal candidate going to look like? And we've got some very innovative ways that she uses to get to that description of the ideal candidate. Then she's going to identify the right qualifications and from those synthesize minimum qualifications. And all of that, our customers tell us that when humans do it, that process takes between 4 and 6 hours to do right. Interview the manager, write a job description, test it, go write an ad, put it out on the web, et cetera, 4 to 6 hours. Athena can do it in as little as 15 minutes with really high manager engagement. And for our enterprise customers, what we're hearing from them is that by providing a seat on the platform to all of their managers, that takes a burden off of their HR and talent teams and allows them to redeploy that labor in more strategic areas. So that's what happens now, because Athena is digital. As she's helping you design this role, she can work in parallel. So she's also writing a performance-based job description, an SEO optimized job posting for the web, social media content, interviewer guides. She will look at what you want to use as a range for the compensation for that role. She'll look at geography, responsibilities, and skills, and tell you what the mean salary is for that geography and for that job, and compare that to your range so that you understand whether you're paying equitably or not. And like I said, she does this all in as little as 15 minutes.
That's fascinating. So is prompt generated? Is that how it works? A lot of people right now think their knowledge base may still be, generative AI.
Yeah.
So is that how it works with the machine?
It's a good question. What we did is we started with frameworks from top recruiters, top HR business partners. There are very specific and defined methods of trying to help managers get these things out of their head. We started with those, and we built inside of those an artificial intelligence core. So, a question that we get asked a lot, usually I will tell you, and proudly I will tell you, by people who are considering us, they are not customers yet, but the question they ask is, why don't I just use ChatGPT to do this? And our answer usually wins them over. You have to lead ChatGPT, which means you have to understand what you need, how to ask for it, and what to do with what you get back. You don't have to lead Propulsion AI. Athena leads you, which means that the solution scales really easily to enterprise level and allows managers to work independently with better quality outputs that thrill their HR teams. So we started with the frameworks used by top professionals. We built the AI core around it. And this is not a form filler. It's not a template. It is a guided interview where Athena's asking questions, the user's giving answers, and then she's working with those. It is not a cut and paste from the web. Because the other problem with generic LLMs is that they are only as good as their training data. And that training data is polluted, unfortunately, by a lot of really, really bad examples. And that's why our product is just better.
Well, this has been exciting. Now, Scott, as we come to a close, what advice or nugget or two that you want to leave with the Chop Squad?
What advice do I want to leave with the child, Scott? Gosh, because I know the audience is so incredibly varied, having one piece of advice for everybody. I don't.
I know, but think of us as entrepreneurs that just, 110 or 20% into our craft and what we have to offer. And maybe we're good salespeople, but, now we have to have now we're growing, we have to bring in a team with us.
Well, I will tell you, as an entrepreneur, I think the hardest thing for me, especially in the very beginning, was that when you work in an organization, there's always a feedback loop. You say, "Hey, boss, I'm going to do this." And boss says, I think I would do it a little bit differently. Or you go down a certain direction and your peer group says, "Hey, you might want to think about this." There's always a feedback loop, right? Both positive and negative. As a founder, as an entrepreneur, you get very little of that. And so I think the piece of advice I would give is believe in what you're doing and stay the course. Without that feedback, do not get dissuaded by the fact that you don't have anybody reinforcing it. If you believe in what you do, keep going and don't quit, because you will get there.
Awesome. Well, with that, Scott, how can we get in touch with you, learn more about you and what you're doing there with Propulsion.AI?
So first, Audrey, let me tell the audience that I'm not a consultant. We don't offer consulting services, but I am super happy to pay it forward. I have been the recipient of so much, sort of good stuff, goodwill from other people, and I feel, significantly about giving that back. So if people want advice about any of the things that I've talked about, I'm happy to help them. Reaching out to me on LinkedIn is usually the best way. LinkedIn.com/in/M Scott M is my profile on LinkedIn. And then if you want to find Propulsion AI on the web and you want to get in and try the tool free, we don't ask for a credit card up front. You can do a free trial. I'm convinced if we built product that is good enough and that solves enough problems, people are going to want to subscribe. You can find us at getpropulsion.ai.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Scott. So look forward to learning more about that. And Chop Squad, if you're at this point and you need this type of help, definitely go to Get Propulsion AI.
Getpropulsion.ai is our web address. Yep.
Okay, Getpropulsion.ai. I love that .ai.
I know you do.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Scott. And look forward to seeing you more down the road here.
I'm happy we're connected, Audrey, and thank you again for having me on the show. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to The Business Shop. We hope that you were able to glean valuable information from our guests and that you will download and share this podcast. Your rating and review is much appreciated. To go deeper with our guests, please visit their website and social channels. To learn more about us, please visit businesshop.info or altogether.biz, where we will help you expand your brand.